Hey there. This is probably going to be the last lecture in the series, but check next week and make sure that I haven't posted yet one more, which could just be basically thanking you for taking the class and good luck in your future. But for right now, let's address the issues that wrap up the course. And this last section is called Working with Diverse Families and Couples. Probably the hardest thing there is to do in counseling and even psychotherapy, um, because of the challenges related to the differences. So there's a statement that says MFTs, marriage and family therapists, um, cannot fully achieve cultural competence. What does that mean? It means that you can't completely understand a culture that's not your own unless you've spent many years there. And even then, there'll be challenges. So, how do you deal with that? You can't overcome it, but how do you deal with it? You put yourself in a situation of constantly learning. You practice self-awareness of cultures and their benefits as it affects all populations in the entire world. And you, in particular, as a counselor, benefiting those people. And you have to look at your own life experiences. It's not really a good idea sometimes. In some cases it might be, but it's not normally always a good idea to compare what I do in this situation to what you do in this situation and leave it at that. It is a good example of comparing and then understanding that culturally different people of a different culture, I'm stumbling around today, are not going to behave in particular circumstances the same as you do because it's a different culture, it's a different um, view, a world view. So you should constantly be examining this. If you're involved in working with diverse families, working with diverse couples, you need to be keenly aware of the fact that your culture and their culture may be a lot different. The other thing you got to understand is you may be um, counseling people who um, are mixed culture themselves. It may be a husband or one member of the couple is from one culture and one is from another. So there's going to be a clash there too, trying to understand where they come from. Where is it that what training is it that they come from? And you need to recognize also that their way of thinking, it's called cognitions, how you interpret things, perception. Um, they're going to have a view of you as a counselor based on their cultural expectations, based on their cultural upbringing that may be totally different from what you're used to. So these are things that you have to learn. They're going to bring all kinds of stuff into a therapy setting. One of the dangers, and I really think sometimes I think it's not necessarily important to mention this, and then other times I think it's very important. So I'm going to mention it because today I'm thinking it's very important. And a lot of that has to do with what's happening in America. You need to become aware of whether or not you practice ethnocentrism. Um, and you need to overcome that because that's a judgmental view. And what does it actually mean? It means that a person feels, based on their own culture, superior to a culture that's different, and therefore they view them as doing things incorrectly. Whether it's a cultural group, an ethnic group, or racial group, makes no difference. Ethnocentrism causes biases. And then if you develop a bias, you might as well get out of the profession because you will not be an effective counselor. You cannot counsel people when you are bitter toward their belief system. So you have to value their humanity. You have to understand that they come from a different background. The things that are important to them may not be important to you, and vice versa. Are they from a collectivist culture? Are they from an individualistic culture? I mean, a million things to consider. Vasquez outlined an approach that seems to work pretty well with multicultural therapy. And it's outlined in three elements: cultural sensitivity, which is an awareness and appreciation of human cultural diversity. That's what we've been harping on. Cultural knowledge, factual information about cultures' variation, particularly from a familiar culture, i.e., the one you grew up in. And then cultural empathy, connect emotionally with a patient or a person's cultural perspective. You have to talk to them. You have to understand what a person thinks in a given situation. And then you make decisions in terms of relation. How does a person's problems relate to cultural factors? Are they mediated or aggravated by cultural factors? Not every problem is. Sometimes you don't even need to emphasize culture. That needs to be kind of a sidelight. So that's kind of what I wanted you to be aware of in this section. Your role through a multicultural view should be one of being adaptable to what that client's expectations are, particularly regarding the helping professions, the psychological and the counseling professions. So bear that in mind, and that may be a wrap. I might surprise you next week, but for the moment, that's it. Talk to you soon, maybe.